Thank you all for coming. Oh my gosh, there's so many. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here is the presentation. Here we go. Okay, so here's a tricky thing about sharing my screen is you guys, if you've never used Zoom before, when I'm in presentation mode, I can't see the Q&A box. I can only see the chat box. So if you want to communicate, which I encourage you to, and please flood the chat box with your questions, but just if you can not put them in the Q&A box for now while I'm in this presentation mode, because I won't be able to see them. So thank you all for tuning in. Oh my gosh. Hi, Mary. Hi, guys. Oh, hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are 3 minutes after the hour, so people can just trickle in as they please. So my name is Jennifer McManus. I am one of the dietitians here at Pendulum. We have so many nutrition services here, but one of the things that we do is these Ask Me Anythings monthly, where you can ask us anything you want in this group setting. So feel free to post in that chat box any questions that you have. And let's get started. So the theme for this webinar is food trends. It's actually the theme I really wanted it to be was resistant starch, but my coworkers said that that was a really boring theme and that no one would want to come. But we will talk about it a little bit later on, just because I think it's a really important topic. But these are, so I don't know if you guys know this, but every year, usually towards the end of the year, these food trends are posted out on, different websites, and we kind of see what is on the horizon for the next year. So these are the 2021 food trends. So we're obviously coming to the close. So it's kind of funny to look back on them and see if they really were trendy during the year, because it's more of a prediction. Pickling and fermenting foods. So this one became really popular during COVID. Mary, I'm so glad you're interested in resistant starches. We're definitely going to talk about that shortly. Don't worry. See, I told them that I think it would be a hot topic. So pickling and fermenting foods, I think, became really popular during quarantine when people were just looking for different things to do. So I think a lot of people pickled and fermented their own foods for a hobby, and they predicted that this would continue in through the year, which I think it did, maybe towards the beginning of the year. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm not seeing it much on social media that people are still pickling and fermenting food. So I think we will see that one disappear in 2022. Virtual cooking classes. These were another really popular thing. I do think these are here to stay. Once again, another COVID thing. Since COVID is still kind of lingering around, I think they'll still have these virtual cooking classes. Let's see, ugly foods. This is another really popular trend. There's so many companies out there. One of them that comes to mind is called Misfits Market, that send, the ugly batch of the vegetables or produce or whatever they have that they think won't sell at the grocery store. Because, when you walk into the grocery store, everything's beautiful and perfectly shaped, and no one wants these, ugly vegetables or fruits. So you can get them at a discounted rate because they're either going to throw them out or toss them or use them to fertilize. These foods, I think these might be here to stay as well. And then chickpeas. So I think cauliflower was a super trendy in 2020, but I think chickpea was a hot topic for 2021, and that was like chickpea pasta, chickpea pizza dough. So chickpea was definitely the hot legume in 2021, but I do think that one's going to disappear as well. So I'm starting to get some questions in. So I'm going to kind of pause on the food trends for now and go to the questions. So Carmen asked, what are the best foods to feed the pendulum glucose control to keep it from leaving your microbiome? Carmen, great question. So soluble fiber is going to be the main source of food for the bacteria strains inside of Pendulum Glucose Control. So your sources of fiber are going to be fruits and vegetables with the skin on. I know when I was growing up, my mom would always peel the skin off of all of our fruits and vegetables, which looking back, I yell at her. So definitely that fiber is where all that skin is where all that fiber is going to be. So keeping the skin on to the best of your liking. And then legumes, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Those are all really, really great sources of fiber. Something that really shocks people, and one of my favorite things to talk about, is artichokes. So artichoke is kind of a random vegetable, but I love talking about it because it's very, very high in fiber. So one medium artichoke has about 10 grams of fiber, which is a lot. And then chia seeds, that's another fiber food that I love to talk about. It's just an easy thing to add to your yogurt, your smoothies, your oatmeal, anything that you can mix it in with. I personally don't love chia seeds, so I'm not going to sit here and preach chia seeds are for everybody, because it's a texture thing for me. I bought a whole bag from Whole Foods a couple weeks ago because I was really trying to practice what I preach and get on the board with the chia seeds, but I think I've opened the bag twice. But I'm working on it. I really am. Flaxseed, that's another good one. It's not as much fiber as a chia seed. So 2 tablespoons of chia seeds have 11 grams of fiber, which is a ton. Flax seeds, I think, only have, about 3 to 7 grams, kind of depending on which one you purchase. And from a fruit standpoint, yes, ground flax, Kathy, is delicious. From a fruit standpoint, the highest fiber fruits are going to be your blackberries, your raspberries, and your pears. So pears are very much in season right now. So are the berries. I think they're like buy 2, get 2 free at my local grocery store because they're so plentiful. And then pears I've had 2 really, really good pears in this month. So really, really great fiber sources there. And then let's see, Elaine asked, how long on average should someone with a damaged microbiome need to take Pendulum before there's evidence of the Akkermansia growing in the intestinal lining? Elaine, that is such a good question. It's a very, very difficult one to answer though. So it really just depends on the state of your personal microbiome. And obviously we haven't been able to test, every single person that's taken our product, but I can tell you, in our clinical trial, we had our participants take Pendulum Glucose Control for 3 months. At that 3-month mark, we asked them to stop taking it. We tested their stool 4 weeks later, and 85% of our participants had all of our strains missing from their microbiome, including Akkermansia. The 15% that had some strain present still, there was no consistency. It wasn't that everyone had, X strain or everyone had Y strain. It was kind of just random. So what that tells us is there's transient strains and then there's colonizing strains. So the colonizing strains are the ones that are going to be sticking around with you long term. Unless you do something crazy to kill them off. Whereas the transient strains, those are the ones that if we don't continuously introduce them into our microbiome, they will eventually disappear. However, what we don't know is if you take Pendulum for 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 10 years, will these strains eventually become colonizing? And that's something that we hypothesize to happen, but we just don't have any data to support it. Does that answer your question, Elaine? Let me know if you need more clarification on that. Kathy asked, what kinds of grains do you recommend? Yeah, so whole grains would definitely be my #1 recommendation. And that's because whole grains are going to have more fiber in them than just, a white bread or white rice. So definitely recommend going for the brown rice, the whole wheat. There's so many great breads out there that are so high in fiber now. They're fortified with all sorts of nuts and seeds and fiber in there. So definitely whatever grain you can find that has the highest amount of fiber is definitely going to be the best one. And that's because fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but it's a type of carbohydrate that will not affect your blood sugar. So especially if you're worrying about your blood sugar spikes, the higher the fiber in that carbohydrate, the more gentler that spike is going to be. Kathy, let me know if you need clarification. Brian asked, what is the minimum amount of fiber that you recommend a day? So that's another great question. We talk about this a lot, your personalized fiber recommendations in our one-on-one nutrition sessions, but just from a broad overview, it's based on your age and gender. And this comes from the National Institute of Medicine. So there's a bunch of different recommendations out there, but the reason why we choose to follow the National Institute of Medicine one is it's the most individualized. So females under the age of 50, it's recommended to have around 25 grams of fiber per day. Females over the age of 50, it's recommended to have around 21 grams of fiber per day. Males under the age of 50, the recommendation is 38 grams of fiber per day. And then males over the age of 50, the recommendation is 30 grams of fiber per day. And that's not broken down between soluble and insoluble fiber. It's just a blanket fiber. But with that, it's super important there's a lot more factors that go into that. So I definitely recommend discussing with your physician or scheduling a one-on-one nutrition session with a dietitian just to make sure that, that amount is appropriate for you. And that's because, fiber is not super prevalent in the standard American diet. We tend to have low fiber foods and higher fat and higher sugar. Thank you to all of our fast food restaurants. So most people really aren't getting that much fiber per day. So if someone's getting, say, around 15 or 5 to 10 grams, which is most people, we don't want them to go from 5 to 10 to 30 overnight. We definitely want to gradually increase that fiber intake over time to not cause any GI distress. And with that, as you increase your fiber intake over time, it's really important that you're increasing your fluid intake. And that's because we don't want to get you backed up. So you want to gradually do all of this. Otherwise you might be a little angry with me and you might be spending a little bit more time in the bathroom than you want to. Brian, let me know if you need any further explanation. So Elaine says, do cranberry and pomegranates create akromansia? Jason Fung, MD, says that they do. How does pendulum work in conjunction? How does this work in conjunction with pendulum? Yes. So I'm not too familiar with the research. I read some research that says cranberry and pomegranates help grow akromansia if it's present in your microbiome. It's a great source of food for them. But I'm not sure, and I have to look into this further, if it creates akromansia if the akromansia is not already present. So that's a really good question. And Elaine, I would love to talk about this offline with you if you have any clarification on that. Because I don't know if it creates it if it's not already there, but it definitely, cranberry and pomegranates definitely are help to keep that akromansia really happy in your gut lining. Okay, Madeline says, after 2 bottles of pendulum, my A1C went from 5.8 to 5.7. Awesome. Is this a sign that it may not work for me? I definitely was not picking out on sweets and bread and carbs. Great. So Madeline, that's impressive. So in our clinical trial, we had participants with type 2 diabetes. So they had their hemoglobin's A1C greater than 6.5. So they have much more need for a larger decrease in their hemoglobin A1C. So we were able, in our clinical trial, they were able to get their hemoglobin A1C decreased by 0.6 in comparison to placebo. But with that, think about it. If you have someone who has an A1C of 10, they have way more wiggle room to go. With our pre-diabetes people, we don't really anticipate it going for that full 0.6 decrease just because you don't have that much. It could happen. We're not 100% sure that you'll get that full 0.6. And it was an average also. So we had some people who saw more than 0.6 and some people who saw less than 0.6. So I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine your goal would be to get out of that pre-diabetes range. So I'm hopeful that with continuing to take pendulum, we'll eventually get you there. And the reason why I encourage you to keep going is because it really does take around 3 months for these strains to get into your microbiome, clean things up, and do what they're supposed to do. So you only did 2 bottles. So I'm really hopeful that as you do, when you get your next hemoglobin A1C in 3 months, that you will see a larger decrease. So no, I would not say at all that this is a sign that it may not be working for you. Mary says, but bread is so high in carbs. So it depends on which bread you're getting. Obviously, you know, there's some that are much higher than others, and nothing tastes better, in my opinion, than a fresh loaf of French bread or sourdough. And yes, those are going to be ones that are higher in carbs, but there are so many low carb breads out there. In fact, I had a customer tell me about this one bread the other day, and I think with these alternative breads, it's kind of hard because it's like, do they really taste that good? Are they worth it? But she said she's tried so many, but this one was the best she's tried. That was low carb. I'll put it in the, I haven't tried it, so I can't speak to it, but I will put it in the chat box for everybody. Send chat to everyone. Hold on. So this bread she recommends, it's by a brand, Natural Ovens Bakery, which I think she said was from Wisconsin, maybe. I guess she says it's a very well-known bakery that's really popular that makes this bread. So give it a try if you want, you know, a super low carbohydrate bread, because this bread has 12 grams of carbohydrates, but 12 grams of fiber, which is crazy. So if you're familiar with net carbs, how that works is you can subtract out the amount of fiber from the amount of total carbohydrate. So this would actually have a 0 gram of net carb. So that means it should have a much gentler effect on your blood sugar. Okay, Kathy. I do best on lower carb foods to keep or lose weight, but I really want some carbs in my life, especially grains. This might be a really good bread for you too, Kathy. There's some, like I said, guys, I can't speak to it, so I don't know if it tastes good, but from a nutrition facts label standpoint, this is a very, very good bread to have if you want to follow that lower carb lifestyle. Carmen says, I am lectin intolerant and I'm on the Dr. Gundry diet. I'm using Pre-BioThrive, ground flaxseed, awesome. Phylum, which I think you might mean psyllium fiber daily. Is this good for pendulum? Yes. Those are great fibers. Psyllium fiber is straight soluble fiber, so that's really, really good. That's going to feed these strains inside of pendulum glucose control. Flaxseed, same thing, another great source of fiber, especially that ground, your body's able to break it down much better than the whole flaxseed. And then let me look up Pre-BioThrive. I'm not too familiar with that. Pre-BioThrive. Dr. Gundry. Sorry, my computer is taking a little bit of time. Okay, so this for 1 scoop has 4 grams of fiber. So you're definitely getting some fiber from that too. So between the Pre-BioThrive, the ground flaxseed, and the psyllium fiber that you're getting, there's a good chance that you're getting in some good amount of fiber to feed those strains inside of pendulum. So yes, that's very, very good. And I just want to make it clear to everybody that I don't want you to feel like you have to supplement with fiber. Usually in our nutrition sessions, we recommend getting your fiber from whole food sources first. So that would be those fresh fruits and vegetables, those beans, peas, other legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. But if you have a hard time doing that, that's when we recommend with that supplementation. And it could be using some psyllium fiber, it could be using inulin. This Pre-BioThrive is good, ground flaxseed, chia seed, all really great sources of fiber. What else was I going to say? Don't remember. But the questions have kind of trickled off. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions. This is why I'm here. It's called an Ask Me Anything. You get a full 60 minutes of me to ask any questions you want. Oh, goodness. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the panel. I would like to talk to you some other time. Okay. I read in one of Pendulum's reports that the regular pendulum, so pendulum glucose control, has 2 times the amount of strains as the, okay, wait, the regular Akkermansia has 2 times the same amount of strains as the glucose control pendulum does. Is this case? And if so, then would it be just as good as the glucose control for my husband? Okay, so let me clear some things up. The dosing of pendulum glucose control is to take 2 capsules per day. The dosing for the Akkermansia only product is 1 capsule per day. But in that 1 capsule is the same amount of Akkermansia that's in 2 capsules of pendulum glucose control. So it is the same amount of Akkermansia that you will be getting per dose, if that makes sense. But we do ask that you take 2 capsules of the pendulum glucose control. So Elaine, I think there's some personal stuff in here that we'll talk offline about. But I think we spoke a little bit, and I do think that the pendulum glucose control would be good for your husband. But we can talk more about that offline. I'll shoot you an email. Okay. So I make a banana oat bran recipe with 2 1/4 cups of oat bran, no flour, but it raises my blood sugar high. I never heard that the fiber cancels out the carbs. It doesn't seem to be doing this with the muffins. Okay, so it doesn't completely cancel out the carbs. So the fiber, there's other types of carbohydrates that are present in that oat bran recipe. So it could be a starch, it could be, there's a ton of different carbohydrate sources besides fiber. So let me see if I can pull it. I'll just share this. Let me see if it'll let me share the screen. I don't have a food label with me, but let's say something has 15 grams of carbohydrate. So on the food label, it will say total carbohydrate 15 grams, but then it says dietary fiber 5 grams. So you can subtract out that 5 grams from the 15, and that'll leave you with 10 grams of net carbohydrate. So that 10 gram of net carbohydrate is still going to affect your blood sugar. So it's not that it's going to completely cancel it out. It's just going to take out some of that carbohydrate. I think that might have confused you a little bit because the bread that I shared has 12 grams of carbohydrate, but it also has 12 grams of fiber. So that's where it gets canceled out. Does that make sense, Melissa? I'm sorry if I confused you. Okay. Melissa, thank you. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. Andy asked, what is the logic behind taking both pendulum glucose control and Akkermansia? So we don't have any logic. This isn't something that we've tested. This isn't something that we necessarily think is necessary. I think my marketing and growth team might kill me for saying this, but no, I'm just kidding. They won't. I personally don't recommend to my customers that you need to take both. Since there is the same amount of Akkermansia. Now we have tons of customers who want to get in that full blast of Akkermansia. There's no research that shows that taking more is going to do anything differently. We know for certain that the Akkermansia strength dose that we have does something. So I think it's just a personal preference and what you want, but we don't have any data or logic supporting that anything different will happen from taking both. Let's see. Kathy asked, so what is the difference between the 2 capsules? Okay, great question. So we have pendulum glucose control, and then we have our Akkermansia only product. And I should have put a picture of these on there since I assumed these were going to be some of the questions, but I didn't. So pendulum glucose control has 5 probiotic strains. Akkermansia has 1. In pendulum glucose control, they both have Akkermansia. So they both have the same amount of Akkermansia. So we're going to leave those out. In pendulum glucose control, they have 2 butyrate producing strains and 2 strains for overall gut and immunity health. The butyrate producing strains are specifically important for individuals with diabetes because to jumpstart this one process in your body, it's called the GLP-1 process. And that process is what tells your pancreas to secrete more insulin. It tells your liver to stop secreting so much glucose, and that's what in turn controls your blood sugar and decreases your hemoglobin A1C. But for that process to take place, butyrate is needed. So with pendulum glucose control, we've identified that these strains have been either lacking functionality or completely missing in individuals with diabetes. So by repleting them with these strains, their body will then be able to break down that fiber and turn it into butyrate. I know that's a lot of science, but I actually read a really good article because I've been getting a lot of questions about, I'm currently on pendulum glucose control, but I don't have diabetes. Should I switch to the Akkermansia? And the answer to that question is it's totally a personal preference. I can speak on behalf of myself. I do not have a history of diabetes. I don't have diabetes in my family. But I'm sticking with the pendulum glucose control probiotic. And that's because I want the 5 strains. I want the Akkermansia, I want the overall gut and immune health strains, and then I want those butyrate producing strains. So I'm going to pop an article that I was reading on our website this morning about butyrate into the chat box. So that way, for those of you on here that might not have that diabetes history and are kind of toying with whether or not they should take the pendulum glucose control or the butyrate, this might help you decide. So this is the one about butyrate. And then I will also share the one that kind of details the benefits of the different strains inside of pendulum glucose control. Okay, so the second one is what's inside of pendulum glucose control, and the first one is the benefits of butyrate. Okay, Elaine, you had to leave. My pleasure. Okay, Kathy, did I answer your question about the difference between the 2 capsules? Please let me know if you guys have any further questions about that. I know it's kind of confusing. We are working on a blog post and an infographic that kind of shares or shows the difference between the 2 that will be really easy for you all to understand. Brian says, since I probably harmed my microbiome by taking amoxicillin for a week, how long would it take to make it more robust again? That's a great question. And I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on how the current state of it is. The cool thing is, obviously taking antibiotic, it doesn't discriminate against the good guys or the bad guys, but you kind of have this clean slate now. So now you're going to introduce all of these good guys. And hopefully with that, those will become, more popular than the bad guys, and it'll be robust, hopefully sooner rather than later. That's a really difficult answer, Brian. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell. But the cool thing about the microbiome, and this is why I love this field so much, is I really do think we've just scratched the surface of microbiome research. And I'm hopeful that, as we continue to learn more as a nation and as a world, that we'll be able to prevent disease in the future instead of treating it. My only hope is that we're alive for when that happens. I hope it happens soon. But if not, I guess our ancestors can benefit from it. Maybe not our ancestors, because those are our past people, but the future people can benefit. Okay, there's a wonderful bakery near me that makes whole grain loaves with nuts and seeds, but there are no nutrition labels, of course. Is there any way of estimating how much I could eat of such products? Currently, I just avoid them. Yeah, so it's really tricky when it's like from a mom and pop shop. So, my biggest suggestion would be to find something that you think might be similar, that has a food label, and kind of compare it from that standpoint, but maybe be on the more conservative side. So I know there's a brand called Dave's Killer Bread, and he has like a 21 nuts and seeds bread. I can send it in the link, Mary. So if it looks similar to that, you might be able to use that nutrition label as a guide. Dave's Killer Bread. But that's where it gets hard, especially with mom and pop restaurants too. You can't look up their nutrition facts and their food labels either. Okay, so here is the 21 whole grains and seeds bread. And if the one that you get at the local bakery, this might help. Okay. Okay, Andy says, do statins affect your microbiome? I don't know. There's an article that came up the top that was published in Nature, which is a prominent journal, and it was published in 2020. And let me see if I can read. I don't know anything about this study, but I am going to put it in here in the chat for you, Andy. I do know that sometimes I have, oh wait, here's another good one. This one was also published last year. I'm going to put both of these in here, Andy. This one looks really good too. You might, it looks like you can get, well, this one you get full access. The first one you only got the abstract to. This one, it looks like it'll give you full access. And this one was published in Brazil. So definitely give those a read. And I recommend discussing with your physician as well, you know, because statins, it might be necessary and we don't know how much it affects your microbiome. And once again, everyone's microbiome is so different. So I don't know how many people were in this study, but they could have a completely different background, a completely different scenario than you. So that's where it gets really hard with the microbiome, is it's just so precise and so individualized. Okay. Gail says, I am new to pendulum glucose control. Welcome. My A1C has never been over 6. I am 69 years old. After 1 week of taking this, I find I have terrible stomach pain. Don't know if there's any correlation. I was on an antibiotic recently for 10 days and have a history of being on antibiotics on and off my entire life. Could it be related? I'm down to 1 capsule per day and was thinking of just stopping. I'm on my first bottle. I'm also on metformin. I do not know if that will affect it. Gail, did you just get started on metformin or have you been on metformin for a while? Let me know the answer to that. And then secondly, you've been on pendulum for 1 week. You know, one of the side effects that was most noted in our clinical trial was, GI distress. That was mostly in the form of gas and bloating. So terrible stomach pain, I don't want you to go through that. So I definitely completely agree that you should be on 1 capsule per day. My other question is, are you taking it with food? And if not, definitely do. That will help with hopefully some of the stomach pain. You've been on metformin for several months. So one of the main side effects of metformin is GI distress, nausea, abdominal pain, bloating. So I would talk to your doctor for sure and see if you can kind of change the dosing or go down and maybe gradually increase it. I'm not sure your dose, but from a pendulum glucose control standpoint, you could also go 1 every other day and build it up. I don't recommend stopping it, of course, because I really am a believer in our product, but I don't want you to take it if it does cause that terrible stomach pain. So we just need to figure out a regimen that way we can build it up for you. But definitely taking it with food should be my number 1 recommendation for you. Have you been taking it with food, Gail? You could also go down to 1 every other day. And if you did want to stop it for, say, a few weeks and see if that stomach pain resolves, then that could be another option. But the gas and bloating, so sorry, circling back to our clinical trial, the gas and bloating, abdominal pain symptoms, not abdominal pain, the gas and bloating should subside after 7 to 10 days of being on the product. Okay. Try taking it 1 capsule per day only with your largest meal and see if that helps, but definitely reach out My email, you'll have my email, a million times. I think you guys got 100 reminders about this AMA since you signed up for it. So you have my email, but definitely reach out if you need anything else, Gail. I'm happy to troubleshoot this with you. Okay. Next question. What CGM system do you recommend if one does not have diabetes, but is very sensitive to glucose? Okay. I personally love the Abbott Freestyle Libre 14-day. I don't have one here. I think it's very, very easy to use. I think it's super user-friendly. It's much cheaper than the Dexcom. Since you do not have diabetes, it's likely not going to be covered by insurance, so you will have to pay out of pocket for it. If you can get your doctor to prescribe it for you, that will be the easiest way. You can take it to a pharmacy and get it filled. Costco is the cheapest if you have a Costco membership. And there are companies that you can purchase CGMs through, but they are not the cheapest. So my recommendation first would be to see if you can get your physician to prescribe it for you, even if it's only for 2 weeks. That way you can kind of play around and see which foods you're most sensitive to. I think you could learn a lot in that 2 weeks. Yeah, of course. Any other questions? I'm going to go to the next slide because I want to talk about the 2022 food trends. So let me be the first to tell you that I am the least trendy person. I feel like I'm always 3 seasons behind and everything. So I did not come up with these. These are ones that I spent a long time Googling through and trying to find some crossovers between all of the websites that I went through. Brian, I'm going to answer your question in just a second. So the food trends for 2022, I think this first one is super interesting. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Beyond Burgers, Beyond Meat, Beyond Sausage. So they basically it's a plant-based vegan, I don't know if it's vegan, I'd be vegetarian, but it's plant-based meat. And that's become super popular this year. So they're predicting that for 2022, that these 50-50 plant and meat blended food will become popular. So this is a picture from this company. I forget the name of it, but it's 50% plant-based meat and 50% meat. So I think, for years, companies have kind of tailored towards the vegans and the vegetarians, but now they're trying to kind of cater to the quote unquote flexitarians, so people that eat everything, maybe in moderation, but still want some of that vegetarian, but will eat meat every now and then. So I think that's what they're trying to do with this. So super interesting. I'm excited to see if this sticks, but we'll see. Mushroom drinks. This one is interesting to me. Let me see. I put a little note about it. It said, there's a few brands tapping into the benefits of functional mushrooms, offering consumers a drinkable option. Used for thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicine, mushrooms are slowly entering the mainstream and becoming a part of consumers' wellness routines, and for good reason. Studies have shown that adaptogenic mushrooms can be used to treat stress and anxiety, boost the immune system, and even help you get a better sleep. I don't know if I would drink a mushroom drink, but I do think that this is going to become a real trend. I think mushrooms are super trendy and super in right now. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out as well. Alternative milks, this I found funny to be on this list because I feel like alternative milks have been around for so much time now, and I don't know how many more alternative milks we could have. But they said oat milk, buckwheat milk, and pistachio milk and macadamia milk are just some of the new alternative milks to hit the market. So these are already on the market, and I haven't heard of half of these. I'm excited to see what's going to be on the horizon. There's a company out of Canada that saw a need for a healthy alternative that consumers could feel good about using daily in their coffee, cereal, smoothies, and for cooking and baking purposes. The company is called Oat Canada. It's Canada's first zero sugar oat milk, vegan, kosher, keto friendly, non-GMO, and 90 calories per serving. So we'll see how many more alternative milks show up in 2022. My favorite one on this list, so there's 9 food trends. This was the article that I read and I found it to be the best one. But one of the trends on there was beneficial snacks. And I love this because I am a huge proponent of high fiber, healthy snacks. Especially, lately, I feel like everyone's taking road trips to get to places because no one wants to get on a plane. But you stop at 7-Eleven, you stop at the drugstore, you stop at a gas station, and you usually pick out like the worst snacks. So I'm hoping that these snacks, these healthy snack options, will become more of a priority for consumers. I would love to see these in, what are those things? Vending machines. That'd be really cool to see. I do think, though, I was in the airport recently and they have so many great snack options in the airport. I really, really hope that these gas stations will follow suit. So that's all I have on the food trends. So we'll see which ones of these do happen and which ones are flops, but I'm going to click next to go to the resistant starch page. That way you can at least have the words on here while I'm going through some more questions. Hold on, I need a break. Okay. I fry my vegetables, generally combine onions, zucchini, squash, red peppers, and avocado oil. Are you anti-frying? Still nutritional benefits post-frying? Great question. So from a fiber standpoint, the fiber in the vegetables will not diminish. High heat temperatures can take out some of the vitamins and minerals from the vegetables. But no, I'm not anti-frying, but I do think everything in moderation is great. Using a low saturated fat oil, such as olive oil, canola oil, great options. Avoiding coconut oil, in my opinion, just because it's very, very, very high in saturated fat, and saturated fat has been linked to cardiovascular disease. So that is what I would say about that, but definitely not anti-frying. It's a must every now and then, but everything in moderation, of course. Brian also says that he really likes the Freestyle Libre. He gets the script from the endo, but insurance won't cover it since I'm not on insulin. GoodRx cost me only $35 a sensor, and Freestyle is real easy to use. Freestyle 2 is much more expensive and not needed. Agree. The 14-day is definitely the way to go. The Freestyle 2, you also have to buy their little, I don't even know, what is it? Monitor. You have to buy their monitor. But I will show you, I have the Freestyle Libre app and I'll show you how it works. It's super cool. Oh no, it's not gonna let me show you because I don't have a sensor on. Never mind, I'm sorry, I can't show you. But you basically just open the app, you press scan, and you just use your phone like a QR code. It's super easy, super great. Huge fan of the Freestyle Libre 14-day. Also from an insurance standpoint, I know Medicare will not cover the CGM if you are not on insulin, but sometimes if you have secondary insurance, they will pay for it. Good. Brian, thanks for helping out, Kathy. You know a lot more about this than I do. That's why I love these. I love the group setting because I feel like you guys all can learn so much from each other that I might not know. Okay, so I'm going to go on with the resistant starch, which is arguably why we're all here, of course. But please, there's still a bunch of you in here. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them in the chat box. If you are on your phone, I can allow you to talk if you raise your hand, maybe. I'm not sure how that works, but we can play around with it. But keep on asking these questions. Okay, so for resistant starch, it is if you're not familiar with the resistant starch, it's a type of starch, it's a type of carbohydrate that literally resists digestion. So that's why it's called a resistant starch. So it does not raise your blood glucose, and it is linked to improved gut health. So these resistant starches, they resist digestion in the small intestine. So that way they can make their way into the large intestine where they're fermented by these good bacteria. As the fibers are fermented, they act as prebiotics and feed the good bacteria in the gut. There are several types of resistant starch, and they are classified by their structure or their source. and more than one resistant starch can be present in a single food. So when starches are digested, as you might know, they're broken down into glucose, which is when we see that rise in our blood sugar. But because resistant starch is not digested in the small intestine, it doesn't raise that blood sugar. Gut health is improved as fermentation in the large intestine makes more good bacteria and less bad bacteria in the gut. Resistant starch is fermented slowly, so it causes less gas than other fibers, which is another disclaimer that I should note as you guys increase your fiber intake. That's another reason why I recommend doing it slowly so your body gets used to it. So you maybe have less gas, but fiber, gas is a side effect of fiber. So don't be alarmed there. Food sources that contain resistant starch include plantains and green bananas. So as a banana ripens and it gets yellow and then brown, that starch changes to a regular starch. So and this is something fun to play around with if you check your blood sugar or you're wearing that CGM, is have, a banana that has some brown spots on it in the morning and see what that does to your blood sugar. And then maybe the next day or, another day, have a green banana and see what that does to your blood sugar. So that green banana should have that more of a resistant starch. So it should have a much gentler effect on your blood sugar. Beans, peas, and lentils. So white beans and lentils are the highest in resistant starch. Whole grains, including oats and barley. And then this is a really fun one, but cooked and cooled rice and potatoes. So if you cook a potato or you cook rice and then you cool it, it forms more of a resistant starch. The biochemistry in that compound changes. It's really cool. And it's going to form more of that resistant starch and have a much gentler effect on your blood sugar. But the coolest part is that reheating it does not decrease the amount of resistant starch present. So if you were to make a batch of sweet potatoes, for example, and you let them cool and you were going to eat them throughout the week, they're going to have more of that resistant starch that's present in comparison if you were to make a fresh sweet potato. And same with the rice. Hooray, latkes. Yes, so that's a fun one too. I don't know how it works with frying. It's really interesting, but hey, you know what? Those latkes are delicious. I put some, of course, my family put sour cream on top, but I put non-fat plain Greek yogurt on top, and it's delicious. Yep, same with potato salad. So if you were to make potatoes and then cut them up and put them in a potato salad and then cool them, they're going to have first of all, guys, let me just clarify. I'm not going to say it has no effect because there's still other type of starch present in the potatoes, but it will have a gentler effect. So this isn't the green light to go out and eat a whole container of potato salad or a whole platter of latkes, but it will be much gentler if you cook and cool it. Great questions. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. So I don't have any more fun facts, but I'm here for another 11 minutes to answer any questions that you guys have. Please do not hesitate to reach out. You can send the message directly to me. You can send it to, oh, someone raised a hand. Hold on. Oh gosh, hold on. Vincent, I'm gonna let you talk. Okay, Vincent, I think you're talkable. If you want to talk. I think you have to unmute yourself though, if you want to talk. Or if you didn't mean to raise your hand, then you can just ignore me. Vincent, if you have,
there now?
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi, Vincent.
Hello there. I have a question real quick. I'm sorry about soluble fiber and the starches.
Okay.
Should it be on a full stomach or empty stomach, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Just as long as you're getting in that fiber, your microbiome and the strains are going to be very happy.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, great question. So Brian says, very interesting your thoughts on coconut oil. I use organic MCT oil in my coffee every morning, and it's supposed to suppress appetite while fueling the brain and body. Not a good idea. Totally recommend discussing that with your physician. I know that the MCT oil and the butter and the cream, the heavy cream became super popular in the coffee, which, you know, I hear some really great things about people. And if you have that fueled brain and suppress appetite and you feel ready to go, then by all means. But the thing to consider is the history of heart disease. If you have high cholesterol, if you have high triglycerides, what that looks like in your family, then I would say, you know, making sure that you're getting your labs checked often, and going from there. Yes. So the other thing I want to clarify is, hold on. I don't know. So medium chain triglycerides, or MCTs, they are a type of saturated fat, but I don't know the difference in the saturated fat content between the MCT oil that you guys might be using and coconut oil. So I think the most important thing is just to get your labs checked regularly and discuss with your doctor, you know, the benefits or the repercussions of having that on a regular basis, just from a heart standpoint. Kathy, so what does it mean when I eat potatoes, I get so very sleepy and have to go to bed? Yes. So there's a syndrome called rest and digest, and that happens as your body is digesting food, you feel tired. And sometimes, you know, there's foods that make you feel more sleepy than others. You know, I know when I have a turkey sandwich, I'm pretty tired, and that's from that tryptophan in the turkey, even if I have turkey by itself. So it really just depends on the food. But that could be something fun to play around with, Kathy, is to see if you were to have, you know, a regular potato, do you get so sleepy? Or if you have a regular potato that you cooked and cooled and it's formed more of that resistant starch, do you get as sleepy? So that could be a fun experiment that you can do. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because something just popped into the there we go, Q&A. Please clarify the ratio of carbohydrate to fiber needed. I'm just taking fiber coming from OTC. Does that mean over-the-counter fiber? So as far as the ratio of carbohydrate to fiber, that's going to be very person specific. So I can't just give a generic statement or a generic recommendation on that. But, you know, usually the carbohydrate recommendation is varied from person to person, but that's kind of why the fiber recommendation is more of a generic. So I would focus more on the fiber, but if you do want those individualized carbohydrate recommendations, we do offer nutrition coaching calls, and I'll put we have a nutrition landing page on our website, and I'll put that into the chat box. So if you guys are interested in further nutrition education and nutrition resources, that would be a better time to do it, just because Ed, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to give you that individualized answer because I don't know as much about you as I would need to. So this is our landing page, and there's meal plans on here. There's boot camps, which we are doing our next boot camp right after the new year. So if you're interested in that, be on the lookout. It's a 4-session, 1-hour calls, webinars, kind of like this exact format, but it's in a group setting, and we go over a lot of the things that we go over in that one-on-one session. So if you're not interested in the one-on-one sessions, the boot camp might be a really good class for you. And then you also will see the nutrition coaching calls on here. And then if you're interested in meal plans, these are also available on our website. Any other question? Oh, thanks for your knowledge. This has been so helpful. Good. I'm so glad, Brian. I just started taking Pendulum. My starting A1C was 5.7. After 3 months of taking it, what might it go down to? Carmen, that's a great question. My pleasure, Kathy. Thank you so much for attending. It's very individualized, Carmen. It kind of depends on the state of your microbiome and what that looks like after 3 months. It can depend on what you're eating. I think, it also depends on, this is just something that we've noticed anecdotally as well, is your diabetes journey. So how long you've been diagnosed. So something that we've noticed is that people with a longer diabetes journey, so that means, having that pre-diabetes or that diabetes diagnosis for 5, 10, 15 years, it takes a little bit longer for these strains to get in there, clean things up and do what we want them to do in comparison to the people with maybe have a newer diagnosis or looking to prevent the onset. I will say with a A1C of 5.7, you are not far off from being out of that pre-diabetes range, which is amazing. So I'm hopeful that we'll definitely be able, that by taking Pendulum glucose control twice a day for 3 months, we'll hopefully see that reduction out of that pre-diabetes range. As far as how much, I don't know. I don't know how to predict that for you, but I would love to follow up with you and see how things are going and maybe talk with you one-on-one. Additionally, something to keep in mind, and I might have mentioned this earlier in the call, so sorry if people are hearing me repeat myself, but in our clinical trial, what is the pre-diabetes range? I thought 5.7 was normal. So you're just on the cusp. So I have a diagram that I can show you. Actually, I can do it right here. So let me finish my first thought. So in our clinical trial, our participants had full on type 2 diabetes, which means their hemoglobin A1C is greater than 6.5. So they have much more wiggle room and a much bigger need for that drop in that hemoglobin A1C. So in our clinical trial, we were able to reduce their hemoglobin A1C by an average of 0.6 compared to placebo. So, you aren't in that full on type 2 diabetes range. So you might not see that full on 0.6. So it might be unrealistic to expect your A1C to go from 5.7 to 5.1 after 3 months. But I'm anxious to see what that journey looks like for you. And we're here to help you along the way. Let me pull up something for you. 5.6 is on edge. Yes, so 5.6 is considered that normal range. Let me show. I want to do my other screen though. Here it is. Okay. So I think you guys can see my screen. So you'll see this little chart right here. And anything under 5.7 is considered normal. An A1C level between 5.7 and less than 6.5 is considered pre-diabetes. And then 6.5 and above is considered a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. Any questions about that? I'm going to stop sharing this because I can't really see much because it's on my second screen. Any questions about that, Kathy? Perfect. Oh, guys, we did it, a whole 60 minutes. I will hang on here. I have a couple minutes that I can hang on and hang back if anyone has any pressing questions. But if not, this is the conclusion of the October Ask Me Anything. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending and asking the questions and being so participative. And thank you for supporting each other as well and answering questions that I might not know. But thank you all. So feel free to hop off whenever you want. Carmen said, in February, I started Gundry diet. My A1C was 5.9. Now it's 5.7. Great. When did you start taking Pendulum glucose control? My pleasure, Ed. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vincent. Gail asked, how can I ramp up my fiber? I think that is part of my problem with my stomach. Yes. So, okay, perfect, Carmen. I'm excited to see how that continues to drop going forward. And the fiber conversation that I'm about to start with Gail will also be beneficial for you. I know the Dr. Gundry diet, he cuts out lectins, I believe, but I'm not sure what else. So fiber is super important to feed your microbiome, but it's also really important to feed the strains inside of pendulum glucose control. So that Akkermansia and the other strains. So the ways to ramp up your fiber are going to be through whole fruits and vegetables, definitely including the skin on them. That's where all that fiber is going to be. Beans, which are a really good source of fiber. They have anywhere from 5 to 10 grams per serving, which is about a half cup. And then nuts and seeds and other legumes and whole grains. So those are all going to be really, really great fiber sources. Let me see if I mix avocados, berries. So raspberries, blackberries, and pears. Those are 3 of the highest fiber fruits. Chia seeds, flax seeds, avocados, beans, quinoa. Apples aren't far behind if you're a huge apple lover. Potatoes with the skin on. One medium-sized baked or sweet potato has around 5 grams of fiber. So those are all some really great ways to ramp up your fiber. Gail, if you find it hard to get your fiber in through whole food sources, there are fiber supplements out there. There's powders that you can mix in with, smoothies or water. There's also gummies. I love the gummies. So Nature Made has a fiber gummy that you could look into. I, of course, as a dietitian, recommend getting in your fiber through whole food sources first. But if you do have a challenging time doing that, then of course, supplementation is a good option. My pleasure. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. I love when everyone is super engaged and asking many questions. It makes the time fly. I cannot believe it's been over an hour. So I'm going to let you all go and get back to your day. But I hope everybody has a really great week and an even better weekend. And the holidays are just around the corner. So if you feel like you need some extra nutrition love, check out our landing page. And we are here to help you in any way. And feel free to shoot me an email as well if you have any further questions. Oh, wait, there was one. Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys.